The title of this video is Unlock Your Purpose and dive deeply into discovering what your life's mission is. Wouldn't you just love to know what your purpose in life is? Another way people ask that is, what is the mission that I've been given in this life? Well, sometimes I've been asked that question, and I usually ask a few questions in response. Must you have a purpose other than simply living life? You see, a lot of people assume that they've been given an assignment from God in their life. They may not be quite sure what it is, but I've heard some people say they feel that they have a calling to a particular career. And I think the question to ask is, where does that calling come from? And what happens if you don't follow the calling? Does that mean that you're somehow failing in your life? The other question is, what if there are several things that you're really good at? For instance, you might be a really good artist or a carpenter or a musician or good at working with computers. Well, if you have all of those abilities, which of those is your calling or your purpose or your mission? Those are some interesting questions to contemplate, aren't they? Most people make two or three career changes over their lifetime anyway. So if that happens, how does that relate to your calling or your mission or your purpose? So maybe there's something more basic to address in order to find the answer. Have you ever asked yourself, what internal need is driving the question about wondering what my purpose or mission is? There must be something inside of you that's driving the question. Because the question of a purpose or a mission could be arising from something that you feel is missing or something external will fill the longing. So you engage in a search for the missing piece. You're looking for that purpose or that mission. But what if your purpose is simply to live a happy life? Well, if that were the case, then there could be several possible activities that you could do that would take care of all of those needs. And in the process, you can be happy. Because happiness is really much more of an inside job than dependent on any of the external activity that you might do. So the only mission or purpose that underlies all the other missions or activities or purposes or callings is to awaken to your soul and spirit that lives in you. And that is very different from living from the needs, the analysis, and the deductions that your mind comes up with. You see, that would be a much more heart-centered orientation to everything that you do. You'll find that when you are soul and spirit connected, you have lasting peace, happiness, and fulfillment. And it doesn't really depend on anything external. Now, there might be any number of roles that assist you in the process, of course, but any role can be a means of expressing your heart and your soul. So in some certain ways, it doesn't really matter a great deal as far as your fulfillment and happiness goes, what it is that you're doing in life has a purpose, as long as you're expressing from your soul and your heart. That's where you will find fulfillment and happiness. So there are undoubtedly some roles that would probably make your life a little more fun and make your heart sing more than others. And I was facing these questions many years ago, and I was thinking about this approach. And so I wanted to determine what would be fun to do in life. So I made a list of a whole bunch of activities that I really enjoyed doing. But then something struck me that anything external was an attempt to feel something internal. And there is a much more direct way of fulfilling the internal goal that isn't dependent on anything external. So I determined that pretty much no matter what I was doing, I was going to position myself internally to define it as fun. I'm talking about the many things you do throughout the day. Some of those things might be thrilling, but other things that you might be considering to be mundane or boring. But if you adopt an outlook that everything you do is fun, you'll find that your life takes on a new life. And then if you add to that mission of being unconditionally loving, sharing, serving, and kind, then there could be many roles that could serve your highest purpose. Now, if you're not sure about how to love unconditionally, I suggest you get a dog, and the dog will teach you. So what I'm going to say next is a little bit tongue in cheek. So take it in the spirit that I'm intending it. Some of the main characteristics of an enlightened person are they are unconditionally loving, instantly forgiving, patient, loyal, dedicated to service, trusting, always in the present moment. Oh, wait, I'm describing dogs. So if nothing else, they certainly can be ideal role models for us human beings. Everyone spends their life accumulating things or knowledge and possessions or control, all to protect self-interest. Not that there's anything intrinsically wrong with that, but all the drives and needs are manufactured in a person's own thinking. And as a result, they're usually ever changing. So if this is the basis of your motivation, you're going to find that you're continually in a quest for something more, or something else, or something different. So the missions and possessions are temporary, and they only have value and influence because you say so at that particular time. And truly, the only value that anything has is the value that you assign to it. And most of what people value is very temporary, including what they think is their mission. So think about it. What do you value most? Name 5 things that you have right now that you value, and I'll bet that many of them are different from what you valued 10 or 20 years ago. And they are things that don't last forever. They're temporary. So one condition I've noticed that some people on a very dedicated spiritual path experience can result from a lot of meditation is they reach a point where they feel like nothing matters and they feel like they're losing their passion that they once had. And when that happens, they feel lost, confused, without purpose. They wonder, what happened to that mission or calling that I thought I had? So here's what you do. Take a look at your life and determine what has been fulfilling and fun in the past, and utilize these as a base for creating a role that you will continue to find fulfillment and fun from. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, but you'll find that some of what you enjoyed at one point in your life can be a launching pad for other things that can take you to another level. So you want to fill your life with whatever makes your heart sing and rise above the notion that there is a single purpose or a single mission or a dharma that you have to fulfill, like an assignment that you've been given from God. Your main purpose is to awaken to your heart, soul, and spirit, and to learn to express that love and have fun in the process. One thing that makes a human being unique in all of the creation is our ability to create. But what most people have done is they've taken that power to create and they create problems for themselves. Now, here's how that happens. People live their lives based on assumptions that things are important. But most assumptions are arbitrary. They're not absolute. So a poignant example of this is how the majority of people on this planet are totally absorbed in a religion, and they have opinions about what is true, and or they're immersed in a political agenda. And then they view everything through the lens and interpret the world events and all their decisions that they make based on the stories they have created. And just about everybody has done this. It's human. But when you view everything from a much higher, more awake and liberated awareness, you realize that much of what you think and believe was made up by someone. Even what you might think of as hardcore science is not as absolute as is often believed. As new information comes out, definitions and explanations have to be modified or changed. So there's a basic ego need, and that is the need to be right. And people will defend their beliefs, sometimes even to the point of death. That's what a martyr is. But that doesn't mean that the belief was a fact. So once you surrender and release the need to be right, you open yourself to other possibilities. Given the amount of false information that we've all been exposed to over the years, this can be a very helpful position to take. No matter what you hear or what you see, you'll be better served by simply saying, maybe. Now, that's not always an easy position because you believe what you believe because you're pretty sure it's true. And this can make it a challenge to let go of a belief. But when you realize that most beliefs are actually opinions, usually based on what other people have said, you'll find it easier to let go of what you've been holding on to and fixated on. But some people struggle with, others release rather quickly. As you change your consciousness concerning something, the characteristics change or they disappear. And this is the essential process behind the higher forms of healing and transformation. But everyone is mostly caught up in some sort of a story or a myth. Here's what happens. You are constantly projecting a future in the way that you hope or think it's going to be, or maybe in the way you fear it will be. And then, of course, it tends to become that. Most of what you project the future to be is there is something that will be a challenge, or that you must strive against the odds, or there's something threatening that you must look out for. You see, the future is always a what-if scenario. It isn't here. That means it doesn't exist yet. It's only a concept in your mind, a fantasy, basically, a mind projection, a myth, so to speak. So the first step to escape the illusion is to be willing to give up the illusions. Be willing to give up what you think might happen. And that is a shift in consciousness regarding any situation. And one way to help you do that is take the opposite position of any belief or condition. Use the what if scenario. What if I didn't have this situation? What would my life be like then? What if I didn't believe this current or future situation were true? In fact, what if I believed the opposite? What would life be like then? This is a very simple process, but it turns the table on long cherished and defended beliefs. And it helps you escape from the trap that holds you. You see, your life is composed of a whole sequence of stories that you believe to be true. If you didn't believe them to be true, you wouldn't be believing them, right? And everyone has a life story composed of certain key elements. So here's an assignment. Create an outline of your life. Put down the key memories of your life. And after you've written an outline or a summary of your major events that you've had in your life, condense it down into those key elements of what has happened into just 2 or maybe 3 sentences at most. You can actually reduce your life into a few sentences. But virtually everyone is so invested in their life stories, they fail to recognize the underlying patterns that shape their lives. And these are best discovered by writing a short biography of the key events of your life. And this will probably surprise you. You cannot underestimate the importance and value of this assignment. For as you tell your story, you're going to discover there's a map of your life that reveals the script your life is following. This script of your story is what is creating your reality. You'll discover your purpose and mission is derived from much of what has already been something you've been doing. And once you have discovered this script, you'll know where you need to bring enlightenment into your life. You can always append or rescript your life or your story. And that will in turn change the realities you create. Because you see, the universe will always mirror back to you the beliefs that you cherish and hold more deeply.